I'm going to be talking about the biggest travel mistakes you want to avoid to make sure you have a smooth trip. Let's get started. The first travel mistake to avoid is not paying attention to the fees on the budget carriers. So some people like to book on the budget carriers because they think they're getting a really good deal. However, sometimes when you pick budget carriers, what ends up happening is you have to self-transfer, which is not fun at all. You have to pay additional money just to pick your seat or to bring any type of bag. In the end, it could be worth it just going with the bigger airline that includes all the fees all at once so you're not surprised. The next travel mistake to avoid is not picking a seat before you fly. Now, call me a nervous Nelly, but unless I have a seat, then it's kind of like maybe I don't even exist to the airline. A lot of times airlines, they do overbook the flights. So for me, I like to pick airlines that let me pick my seat right away so I'm not just guessing and having to worry about it later. The next travel mistake to avoid is not checking in for your flight online if you have the ability to do so. So a lot of times, maybe 24 to 48 hours in advance, the airline's going to allow you to check in. This is to make sure they know that you're coming because the airline will overbook you. Most airlines will overbook their flights. So you just want to make sure you say, yep, that's me. I'm coming along. So just check in. It takes a few minutes. And if anything, it saves you some time at the airport because sometimes you have to put your passport number in and verify a couple things. So I recommend just checking in. Save yourself the stress. Just do it. The next mistake is not arriving during the daytime. Now, it may seem like this is kind of over the top. However, if you travel a lot to Japan or you go to some places where maybe they do close down their city, or like let's say you made it to Hawaii. Well, when you're in Kauai, everything closes at like 7:30, it seems like it. So it's really important that you try to arrive during the daytime so you can figure out how to get to your hotel. Maybe you got to take a train or a bus or maybe even a taxi. If you're going to Barbados, sometimes there's no taxis at a certain time at nighttime. So you have to make sure that you arrive during the day. When you arrive during the day, it's also easier to check into your hotel. The next travel mistake is not picking an earlier departure time. So if you have a flight that has a connection, then the best thing to do would be to travel first thing in the morning. That's because the plane has usually been serviced overnight. Everything's clean. They're not going to have as much delays when you leave in the morning. If you're taking a direct flight, then go ahead and just book whenever you want, as long as you arrive during the daytime, right? But if you do have a tighter schedule and you have connecting flights, I really recommend leaving earlier in the morning. The next travel mistake isn't really a mistake. It's more just a preference, but try to book direct flight as much as possible. And this is because the more direct your flight is, you just have to lift off and land once. If you have to do that multiple times during your trip, there could be bad weather in the middle of the world, somewhere, wherever you're going. So if possible, direct flight would be better. There's also less chance of your luggage getting left somewhere super random. And then there's also less chance of you missing your connecting flights because you already got it direct. If you have the power to save up a little bit more money to book direct and stay with the same airline, it does save you a lot of stress. The next travel mistake to avoid is not checking all your important documents. Make sure your passport is actually your face. Make sure your passport numbers that you put into the computer is actually your passport number. And then you also want to make sure your driver's license, you have that, your money, you have that. You just want to make sure to go over any important paperwork before you get on that flight. The next travel mistake to avoid is not having a long enough layover. Now, for me personally, if I'm going from country to country and I have a layover in the middle, I like to have at least 2 hours. This makes me feel a lot better because when we did Barbados back to Los Angeles, we had to stop off in Miami. We did have 2 hours, but they were so backed up, we had to run. And some people only give themselves an hour for the layover. You just want to make sure you have enough time because they're just going to take off. They may not even wait for you. So if possible, try to give yourself at least 2 hours for that layover. All right, this one's kind of an obvious mistake, but it's not getting to the airport early enough. It's so important to get to the airport early enough. The best thing to do would just be waiting by your gate with so much time to spare. You are like the richest person with time versus just really struggling and trying to get through check-in and security and trying to find your gate. If anything, just save yourself the stress. Go ahead and just play on your phone when you're on the other side. Get to the airport early. I recommend if it's a domestic flight, get to the airport 2 hours early, and then if it's international, at least 3 hours early. That makes me feel super good because I'm a stress-free traveler. The next one is not boarding at your actual boarding time. Now, don't be cutting people in line for your boarding time, but don't be late to your actual boarding time. And the reason for this is I really feel like the last year, 2 years, it's been a lot harder to find overhead bin space for your carry-on bag. So unless you want that bag to be checked in with the airline, get to your gate and make sure you're boarding when it's your boarding time. So when you do that, you want to be first for your boarding time, and then you can have all the space in the world, and then at that time, just chill in your seat. I know some people that like to board very, very last because they want to see, are there any seats that are open? Maybe I can sit there. You can't sit there if you have a bag that you have to put overhead. So you're going to have to put your bag maybe at the end of the airplane, then you get to sit at the front of the airplane. That's not going to save you any time. If anything, just get to your boarding time at the time you're supposed to get there. All right, the next travel mistake is not wearing the correct clothes to the airport. Now, I made another video that I'm gonna show you on the screen right here, and this is gonna talk about what you should not be wearing to the airport. This is gonna save you so much stress and so much time, and if anything, some embarrassment. So yeah, take a look at that video. I'll also link it below. Also, if you're enjoying this video, I would super love it if you would click that subscribe button down there. Here at Build Your Moxie, I cover a lot of travel tips, I cover Japan, and I do cover some personal finance. All right, the next travel mistake that I make sure I never do because it just makes me too nervous, it's not going to your gate first after security. You wanna make sure you go to your gate because sometimes your gate is gonna be in a completely different part of the airport than what you thought. There have been some times where we gave ourselves plenty of time to find the gate, but the gate actually you had to take a shuttle to get to the other part of the airport. So we're like, oh man. So then what we did was we just found our gate, we just found some food over there. But yeah, you wanna make sure your gate actually does exist because a lot of times you may just be chilling there. You're like, oh, I think my number is down there. No, you gotta make sure you walk over there, maybe just touch it, tag it, make sure that you got it and it does exist. The next travel mistake is not verifying your gate through the electronic board and not staying updated with your gate. So a lot of times if you're gonna get that paper boarding pass, it'll say your gate number on it, but you don't wanna bank on that because there's a lot of updates that could be happening. Sometimes they have to switch out the planes, sometimes they gotta just move the gate. So there are some flights that could be changing the gate like 3 or 4 times. That's happened to us before. Sometimes even like 10 minutes before, they're like moving all the people over to the other part of the airport. So just make sure you're checking that big electronic screen to see if there's any gate changes with your flight. The next mistake is not traveling with air tags. So air tags are so amazing because things just happen to luggage, okay? Your luggage could be at another part of the world. You're going this way, they're going that way. My luggage got shipped back to Korea, which was like the weirdest thing. They just had to ship my bag from Oahu to Maui. It wasn't even that hard, and they sent it back to Korea. So if I had air tags at that time that my luggage got lost, I would have had a lot more peace of mind. But for the last 2 years, I've been using air tags, and this is the case I like to put on it. Air tags have just been such a lifesaver, especially if I'm doing luggage delivery in Japan, or maybe we just have a lot of layovers. I recommend getting these. These are usually around $25 each, and they last for a whole year, and you can replace the battery. The next travel mistake that people make is not weighing their bag before they get to the airport. Now, sometimes if your bag is even over like 1 or 2 pounds, they can charge you $50 to $100, or maybe make you rearrange your whole bag, so now you're getting farther and farther in the back of the line. It's important to weigh your luggage. This is the one I always bring with me whenever I'm traveling. I leave it in my carry-on bag. Sometimes it's in my personal item because I like to weigh things to make sure maybe if my bag is like 48 pounds and my husband's bag is 52 pounds, I just want to make sure I'm not going over. So all you do is you just put this strap on the luggage and then you turn it on and then you just hold up the bag. This one can do pounds and kilograms. Also, it's super light and super compact. This guy has saved us many, many times. The next travel mistake is not staying organized. So sometimes if your stuff is all over the place and they have to open it for security, then you gotta throw all that stuff back in. You spent all that time packing for what, right? So sometimes it's nice just to keep things in packing cubes. This is a clear one I have from Bays. This is a compression packing cube, which is awesome. What I like to do is keep all of my electronics somewhere, and then my liquids somewhere, and then my clothes somewhere. So I just recommend just staying organized because you never know what's gonna happen, or if you have to like rearrange things really fast. The next mistake is not getting an actual good suitcase. So when it comes to suitcases, you can get suitcases that can last years and years and years and years. The ones I really like getting are Bays and Monos. So I'm gonna link some videos down below if you're in the market for another carry-on or a check-in bag. There's a big difference between finding a $50 luggage and some that's a little bit more expensive. The ones that are more expensive, there's a reason for it, and it's because you don't have to buy it again. Like I like to say sometimes, buy once, cry once. So in the end, it really is important trying to get a good luggage that's not gonna break with its zippers or the handles or maybe the trolley or the wheels. If there was any travel item that you should invest in, it should be a good luggage. All right, the next travel mistake is not having your luggage stand out. So whenever I have suitcases, especially if it's black, I like to have a little identifier on it. So what I like to do is just put something here like a ribbon. When someone else grabs the bag, they know it's not theirs. It has to be pretty obvious. I usually do it by the handle, so around the trolley pull-through area or this handle. And then I also have a luggage tag that I can identify really easily. One of the worst experiences I can imagine would be having your suitcase go to someone else and then you take someone else's. Not gonna be a good trip. That's also why I put Apple AirTags inside all of my bags. So you can go ding, 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 and mean, they could be like, what is that noise? That's not my bag. So anyways, just make sure you put some kind of identifier on your luggage. That's gonna save you a lot of potential headache. The next travel mistake is not taking pictures of your luggage. So the reason why you wanna take pictures of your luggage is because let's say the airline did lose your bag. If you have a picture of your bag, then they can identify it a little bit quicker. And then also what I like to do is make sure you take a picture of the contents inside the luggage. Not only will that make you remember exactly what you brought, but sometimes if they lost your luggage completely, sometimes the airline will reimburse you up to a certain amount. So you wanna be able to have a good record of what was in that bag. The next mistake is not using a cube when it comes to charging your stuff in the airport. You don't wanna just take your USB cord and just put it into those places in the airport, because even though the airport is not there to steal your stuff, maybe other people are. There are hundreds and thousands of people going through that airport, and they could be putting something there trying to steal your information. So don't plug any of your USB-C or USB items into the wall. If you need to use a travel adapter, go ahead and do that. But the best thing to do would be to plug your cable into the cube and then put this into the wall. From there, no one can steal your information. Just looking out for you. Alrighty, so those are some of the biggest travel mistakes to avoid. If you want to see more travel tips, I'll link some on the screen right here.